Right, folks, I am going to turn the game music off at this point completely, so there'll be no game sounds because it's not that important. No, as usual, I can't, with these tutorials, show you the menus for all the usual reasons. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to turn off all the cameras, except the top left one, because everyone wants to see my pretty face. Careful. Right, turn the console camera off. Right, and what I might do is adjust everything else. We'll see how it looks when we get going, but we should be all right. So this tutorial is how to make Railfan scenarios. Now, at its very most basic, a Railfan scenario is just a player train that doesn't go anywhere, or no player train at all. However, there's a little bit more to it if you want to just put a bit more polish on. Frisco, can you have any teasers on the Western Pacific thing? No, I can't give teasers, I'm afraid. If it hasn't already been said, I can't say it. So, Jad Onyu, why can't I show the menus? It's because I've got absolutely everything that's ever been made and put on Steam for this game that's not necessarily been released yet, or was released and never put out, or all sorts of things. There's all sorts of stuff that's on my machine that that I can't show because it's never been announced. So, yeah, I do have a second install, but it's an absolute pain in the neck. Monty Python, thank you for the follow. It's an absolute pain in the neck setting up a second install and then making sure it's got any DLC on it, and I end up basically finding that I haven't got some trains that I want in there. So it's a case of, you know what, I'll just do it in here. I can't show you the menus. I'll talk you through the menus, and we'll go. Have I got the Amtrak P328 BHW? Yes, I do. I've got everything. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch the game off. So let me talk you through what I'm going to do here. So I'll turn the game off. So I am clicking the build menu. I am then going to. So we're doing a Railfan scenario on ECML London Peterborough. I think you can guess where I'm going with this. So I'm clicking on the scenario tab, and then I'm going to ECML London Peterborough. Click new scenario. Wait for it to respond. Click. I'm going to do this scenario at Nebworth. Got to be done, really. It's a standard scenario, and I'm going to call it TSL Nebworth train spotting. Right, I'm going to click create. So we'll just wait for this to load up. Put the game back just so that there's something to look at besides me. So, I'm going to be using scenario scripting to do this Railfan tutorial, to do this Railfan scenario. And there are some elements of this that you really need to be doing in scripting to just put the right polish on. There are ways of doing this. Like I said, you can do it much more simply without doing any scripting at all. And to be honest, you've probably already figured out how to do that. It's just do a scenario the way you normally would, and don't, when you put a player train down, don't make it go anywhere. The goal here is to look at the way that the Railfan scenarios work in TS 2016 and do that. So the basic principle is set up the player train, or the player, yes, it's still a train, even though it's invisible. Tell it to go somewhere it can never get to, so the scenario never ends. Then tell it to call the script. The script will kick off a camera. It will then cause a delay, and in the end of that delay, it will end the scenario. So that's how you bracket the scenario, and then what you do in the middle is just normal scenario creation stuff. There's a script command which will end the scenario, and that's how you make it to where it's not. Well, I don't like Railfan scenarios where it just pops up at the end and says, and now you can press the escape key and leave, because I don't normally use the phrase OCD, but it's just a little bit of me. I don't like pressing escape out of a scenario. I want the scenario to tell me I have finished it by ending properly, and without a bit of scenario script you can't do that. So that's why people don't do it, is because they don't necessarily know how to. So the other thing I need to do is just put that gamma back where it was. Hi there, Katie. Right. So, and it's blaring up on my machine as well. So this is Nebworth, which I was quite impressed with actually. This is the car park I looked at parking in, and this is the road I ended up actually parking, and I parked about here, and then walked down here up under the railway, up there, and that's the station building. And in the real station building, you walk in here. Actually, it looks so spookily like the station building, and then there's a walkway under there, and you walk up into this bit here. And I spent most of my time standing about here, because there's a speaker tannoy about here somewhere, which is because I wanted to record the voice saying the train at platform 3 does not stop. So I got a couple of quite nice recordings of that. Thompson did the assets for this route. Yes, when Alan was working for railsimulator.com, it was the Sterling team that built London Peterborough. Did a very good job, as always. Okay, so how do we get started? So I need to enable a couple of assets. I'm going to switch the camera off while I do that, or switch the game off for a minute while I do that, and I'll tell you again what I'm doing. So let me just show you this box here. Yeah, you can't see the mouse. Why can't you see the mouse? You can now, right. This box here, yeah, there's one over in the left hand corner. You click that, that's the object set filter, right? So if you click that, and then it pops something up over here which will then let you pick stuff. So let me just turn that off, and I'm going to enable DTG, and then I'm going to enable Exeter Kingswear. What you want to do is find one of the dovetail routes that's got official Railfan scenarios in it. Ideally, you could use one that you're going to use assets from, but there's none of them, I don't think, that have got the Railfan asset in it. So I'm going to use Exeter Kingswear. And I'm going to also add the Class 180, cos. I'll just try and get some of this done now. And I'm also going to add... I've got another video on YouTube where I show how actually doing this on how you actually add assets. So if you want to use assets from other packs, how you can actually do that. Where's the... Oh yeah, the 91 is under RSC, if I remember rightly. Now, having got London Peterborough already enabled by default, we don't have to worry about that. Yep, there's the 91. And... Let's make sure I've got the right one in here. Yep. That's that one. Is there anything else I want to add? I don't think so. I think that will probably do. Which means I can put the game back on and we can get going. Okay, right. So, there's a couple of steps here. So, if you do a train spotting scenario and you don't have a player loco, you have a bit of a problem in that because of a bug somewhere, I'm not going to say whether it's where it is, it's probably something the game could help. But because of a bug somewhere, after a while, all you see is couplers flying around, and the train wagons themselves vanish. And it happens most prevalently in train spotting scenarios because you're not moving around. So, why not stick an A4 and 8? That's a good idea. Let's go ahead and stick the Flying Scotsman coming through, shall we? That's an excellent idea. If we're going to do this, let's do it properly. Let me just enable, so that's under RSC and Flying Scotsman Pack 02, I think. Yes, Flying Scotsman Pack 02. We'll have that one come flying through. And then put the game back on. Okay, right. Yes, so if you don't put a player loco down of some sort, then you run the risk of them all the wagons disappearing, and there's not really any easy way of solving that for the player except flying a long way away and then flying all the way back again. Which is, they're just not going to do that. Most people wouldn't even know that that is a valid solution, and then what I find is I fly away and then can't find my way back again. Yes. If you've got a cab, however, a cab of a loco, they can just press cab mode and press 2 again and fly back out again, and it fixes it instantly. Going into the cab and back out again fixes it. So having a loco is by far and away the best way to do it. The problem is putting it somewhere. Now, this is a really good example of an awkward station. Yeah, that's what I'm calling it now officially. It's an awkward station because it's got nowhere. Ideally, I want to use all these lines, and there's no little siding somewhere that I can just put the invisible train on. If I was going to fly down the line here a little bit to Welwyn Garden City, so this would be a better location for a train spotting scenario. So if you look at Welwyn Garden City, look at all these lines here. In a minute, the game will hopefully catch up and load all the assets in. There you go. So you've got all these assets here. All these sidings, and you can stick the player train in one of these and not get in the way of what's going on in the main line. But we're not down there, so let's do it at Nebworth as a sort of a worst case. Boy, isn't that awkward scenario. Right, once it's caught up a little bit and all the assets have returned. I think my hard drive's running very, very slow for some reason. I was copying files around earlier on and it was just amazingly slow. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so I use these three lines here. I'm going to use platforms 2, 3 and 4, and I'm not going to use platform 1. Yeah, not for more than one train. So I'm going to put the player train here. So if I bring a train in, it can stay there and stop and it can't go any further. Gouger, if you add assets from a route into your own route, when it loads your route, does it load all the assets from the added route or just the assets you're using? If you enable a provider product via the object set filter, then the entire of that provider product is loaded. Yeah, regardless of what you're using. So that's one of the reasons that, so as of TS 2013, the Coogee Rail Simulator stuff was no longer used in any products and it wasn't delivered as part of the core product. The reason for that is because that is so big that when you use it, you are immediately using a ton of memory, and you're probably only using it for a coupler, a driver. It's amazing how many things, some of the packs that were withdrawn a while back, in TS13, were withdrawn because they had these dependencies. And this is where you load a class 60, and in order to bring the class 60 in, I think it was the 60 was one of them. There were several. I'm not picking on that for any other reason. Then, in order to bring that in, it needed to bring the entire of the Coogee Rail Sim Dev in, and it was just, I think, for a coupler and a driver, and yet it was, using a gig of memory to do that. So. Ideally, never ever use Coogee Rail Simulator, and certainly never tick anything you don't actually need. Right, so now we're going to get started. So over here, under Locos, right at the bottom is Railfan, and this is because of the Exeter Kingswear that I imported. Railfan is an invisible loco. Yeah, you can see it's actually represented by the camera, but then the camera will disappear once we get in the game. So if you push this and then get rid of that, right, now we can put the player icon on top of it. This is a loco. Treat it exactly like a loco. It's got the player disc on it. The difference is we're not going to move it anywhere. Yeah, it's an invisible loco. Will I play the Railfan when it's completed? Well, we'll see whether it works. I may just have to say, well, you get the idea. Moving on, frustrated, rage quit. Right. So, having put the player train down, what we now need to do is give this train some instructions. So the player train is here. This is it there. And what I need to do is tell it to go somewhere that it's never going to get to, and that's fine. It doesn't really matter what you do. You could put your own link in and make it go there, or you could use one of the existing ones. I'm just going to use the existing one. So if I say stop at, I keep forgetting to click that. Oh, come on. There you go. Warmer green up reverse. So we'll put that in there, and then we'll make that the final destination marker as well. Okay. So Sales TV, if you look at all of the newer routes since TS 2016 came out, they've all got some invisible track and stations for this purpose. But this is an older route, so it doesn't have it. So, because I could show you how to do it with the 2016 routes, but there's more of these, so I thought actually the more generic technique would be more useful. When you do a Railfan, do trains travel all the way down the line and can make them just go out of view and disappear? It's exactly the same rules as a normal scenario. if you can get the train to a portal, you can make it vanish in the portal. Otherwise, well, it'll have to go to a portal or stop somewhere. See, there's a portal. So we've got Portal Welling Up was a place we can consume trains south from Knebworth, and there is actually a portal up here, south of Stevenage that we can use. Or was that north of Stevenage? Sorry, that we can use. So we've got portals relatively close to where we are, so we can consume trains, which is quite handy. Right, so we've put those the end marker in, and that's just there because you need it in a scenario. That you're not going to be expecting the player to drive this invisible train there. That's just there to make sure the scenario doesn't end, essentially. Now what we're going to do is enable the scripting. So we're going to add a little trigger instruction here, which is just going to be called start, and that's basically that. I don't think this player service needs to have. Hey Amarillo and hey Alex. I think it's Alex. We're making a train stop at the signal. Do the signals automatically work, or do you have to set the signals yourself? No, signals. All the signalling is automatic. You tell the trains to start, stop, and all the rest of it. This is exactly the same rules as a normal scenario. Why don't the builders put the Railfan track at all the stations instead of a few? I don't know. I shall mention that. So the way we've set it up, we can have trains coming and stopping here or going through here on platform 4. Platform 3 and 2 are the through lines, and we'll have trains coming through. So let's get a couple of trains in. Alright, so let's set up back here, and let's put class 365 on ready for platform 4. We'll set up a class 91. Where are you? I think I hit the wrong button, didn't I? I ticked the wrong thing. Hang on a second, folks. I was wondering where that 92 came from. RSC. Yep, I did. I missed. Right, that's better. How can you use portals? I'm going to show you how to consume trains into portals, but I must admit I don't particularly like using them to spawn trains, so I'm not familiar with that. Right, so let's get the 91 in. It'll finish streaming the textures in a minute. Let's put player or drivers on each of those trains. And it crashed. And it crashed! Oh, it's going to be one of them days, isn't it? It's going to be one of them days. Make sure the DVT is it's London in, yeah. Let's wait for the game to start back up again. Yeah, spawning can be used, but spawning is one of the functions of the portals. But I must admit I have nothing but trouble with it, so I don't bother. I use them to consume only. Your mileage may vary. Why is it you want into City Swallow, not East Coast? Because of the licensing again, as usual. Let's hope for no power outages. Oh, don't go there. Class 91 doesn't. Well, Class 91 was quite happy to be involved in my little prototype of the scenario earlier on. Right, Knebworth train spotting. Unfortunately, nothing got saved, so boo-hoo. The mic is slightly clipping when I talk loud. Alright, I'll quieten it down just a little bit. Hopefully that's a bit better. Once the thing gets in, I shall reset the scenario up. Oh, even Spag Bowl Gouger, fantastic. What I do to make the game not visible? To not make what? To not make the game invisible. I'm just unclicking the panel in OBS. I could use the NXEA 90 instead of 91, but the 91 sort of feels like it's probably more realistic. Right, we haven't got anything here. Right, let me just enable all the assets and oh, this is joyous, this is. Right, I want Exeter Kingswear. I'll bring the game back on once I've enabled all the assets. Class 180. And then under RSC, Class 66, Class 91, and the Flying Scotsman. Where are you? There you are. Let's put an A4 pack in there as well, why not? Right. I think I've got everything I need. Let me just double check in the consists. Not quite. Nearly there, folks. That's better. Right, saved. That's at least one job I don't have to do again when it crashes, inevitably. Right, so this is Nebworth. Let's get the player train in. So we go all the way down to the bottom, find Railfan, put it in. I'm putting it well clear of the platform because I do want to bring one train in and stop it. Alright, and then we will come to this and put the player icon on it. And then we'll give it instructions, and we will tell it to go to there, final destination there, and we will tell it to do a script command. We'll actually program that script command in a minute. I just wanted to get some trains in the scenario. Right, so that's set the player train up. Let's save that. Right. Now, back down here. Better. Right, now, 365 on the slow line. Class 91. Class 91 leading. Is that the DBT or the 91? Let's have a look at that one. Don't know, let's just put it down and then change its direction later on. That looks like the 91. Yep, that's the 91. Right. Driver icon. Driver icon. Save. What is strings, C. Rogers? Sorry, BNSF. That is for localization. I could do a whole other tutorial on localization if that's something people are interested in. Localization is where you put the text in so that if a British person is playing it, they'll see English, and if a German person is playing it, they'll see in German instructions. But obviously, to do that, you kind of have to speak the language, or just use Google Translate, but it doesn't do a great job. Coplopper is now accusing me of having an iPhone. Maybe talk to me on Skype later on, Coplopper. You can explain what you mean. Right, moving over here. Let's put a train over here. So let's have the class 180 on the fast line. Not that one. That one. And we'll stick a... I won't bother with anything else. For the time being, I just want to get some trains in and moving. And now if we come in here, we've got all of our services. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just name them. So service 2, if we click on the red button here, will take us to that one. So service 2 is the 91.1, and that one I'm going to send into the portal up there above Stevenage. So that's going to go to there. Service 3 is the 365, so let's name that something. Is that reasonably? It's not that sensible, to be fair. And I'm going to tell that to go to here, but I'm also going to tell it to do a passenger stop at Nebworth. Nebworth 4. Right, so that'll tell it to do a passenger stop. Now I've got that Grand Central 180, which is that one, and I'm going to tell that to go down to Wellinpool, which is down here somewhere. There it is. Right, tell you to go to there. So we now have some AI trains set to move around, which gives us a little bit to look at. Stuff is going to happen. So I'm just looking at the chat. If I'm missing any questions, by the way, post them to one of the mods so that they can harass me to make sure I don't miss it. How do you save in edit mode? Press F2. So having set those up, I'm just going to press F2, and then that will let me get that out. Good job, Ron. I must admit I can't remember what the question was now, but if it helps, that's good. Memory like a sieve. Is this how the official Railfans are made? I don't know. I've not sat behind them and looked at it, but I imagine it's pretty much how. I'm using the basics of the scripting or the scripting technique they use, so the overall structure is going to be pretty much the same. Right. So we've now got AI trains in. We've got a player loco. We could give this a try and just see what happens, and then you can see the next steps that we need to figure out. He's in full huff mode tonight. Oh dear, I better be careful what I do with them wipers then, Moggy. Right, so, of course what I haven't done is that thing I always forget to do, is to mark the player train. So let's get back up to. I'm not quite sure why that's all of a sudden a million miles underground. So I need to just come over to my little invisible player train here and mark that as a player train. That way we've got somewhere a cab we can go to. Right. This is us in cab mode on the invisible train. Yeah, so let's press 8 and come out. This isn't where we're going to leave it, but now we can free roam ourselves around. We've got the 180 already coming in over there. Amarillo, oh, that's sorry to hear. There is no sound at the moment. I'll turn the sound on a little bit later on, just in case of menus and so forth, just getting in the way. Actually, we've not got any menus, so I can turn the sound up. Not that it seems to be making any difference. See, Rogers, can you use portals to take trains? You can use them for spawning trains. I just don't have much luck for it, so I don't tend to do that. Now, if we look at the map view, we've got a 365 and a 91 heading up towards Nebworth at the moment. You'll see them coming in now. I don't know why we're not getting any audio. I think the game, when it restarted, has come up without audio, but that's fine. Audio is not the important bit. So I've got the 365 coming in at the moment. Let's fly down the other end here. Stand behind the yellow line. 91 coming through. And there you go. So that's pretty much everything we've done so far, and you can see that we're basically working. But what we need to do is nip it, tuck it, and make it actually work a little bit nicer. So now what we're going to do. So where are the problems with this? So the first problem is just general tidiness when we start. We could use a nice camera intro. The next major problem is, when does it end? You know, at the moment I just have to press escape and press quit, which is rubbish. Yeah, so that's the two major problems that we need to fix. And then we can just add more trains in. So press Control E to get back in the editor, scenario editor button. Wait for it to go in the editor. Right. Just trying to drag that a bit closer to the ground level. Not quite sure how it managed to get underground. That'll do. Right. So we remember, if you remember, up here in the player train, we did this and we set this start event up. I don't know where that one's come from. We can get rid of that. So what that's going to do is going to cause some stuff to happen in script. So that's with this icon here. So if I click that and I click Open Folder, what that's done, what I'm going to do now is share the monitor instead of the game. So what that's done is it's brought this folder up, and I can create a new file in here called scenarioscript.lua. Now remember, I've already done a separate tutorial on how to do scenario scripting, and I'm basically going to lean on that. So if I'm probably not going to repeat it too much. So if you have a I would recommend you, if you're not familiar with what I've done, you go ahead and Nutter 31806. Thank you for the follow. If any of the scripting stuff confuses you, go and have a look at my blog, trainsimlive.blogspot.co.uk, and go and do the and look at the videos I've done on that as well. Right, so just bring that on out separately. So this is the scenario script.lua. There's nothing here. Now I'm going to do this slightly more neatly than I would normally do it. So the first thing you need is all of your definitions. Again, my blog tells you what all of this is, and you can get the paste for that one. Then you need the two functions, the onEvent and the test condition. And again, I've made these so that they call global functions, so you don't ever have to touch these functions again. Will I be showing how to script the scenario to complete? Yes, I absolutely will. So the first thing we did back on the game is we told it to. You can see it just in the background here. It says start. So that's going to create an event called start, and that means we need function on event start in there. Right? Whatever name you put in here, because of this function here, will just get called the way that it's been done there. So that gives us our first command that needs to be executed. So I am going to paste some commands in now and then explain them to you. So the first thing we're going to do is lock all the controls so that the player can do nothing while we start. It's up to you whether you like that or whether you don't like that, to be honest. It has its upsides and downsides. The next thing we're going to do is activate a cinematic camera so that you can fly around. Next thing we're going to do is do something called trigger deferred event. What that means is that after the cinematic camera has finished, we're then going to move on to the next event. Xshooter says, why not keep vars to a minimum? You could keep vars to a minimum, it really makes no difference. So it doesn't really matter. Next thing we're going to do then is, so we're going to say, this is going to say welcome message. And so the next event then is on event welcome message. because this is saying in 17 seconds raise an on event welcome message. So there you go, that's going to go into there. What does welcome message do? It does this, and I'll explain what this does. What I'll do is I'll paste this on my blog, because to be honest, once you've got this working once, you use almost exactly the same script for everything you do. You were taught otherwise, Matt, that's why I'm asking. To be honest, X-Shooter, in general, you keep with variables. These are actually constants, not variables. It's just Lua doesn't really have the concept of constants. So these are all of the constants that you need for things like false, true. I mean, you could use zeros, ones, and twos, but then your code's unreadable. So treat these as constants, not variables. This is because I don't want to have a giant if-else statement in there, so lots of functions which modularizes the code considerably. So we're going to on event start, we'll kick off the cinematic camera. So after the cinematic camera has finished, we'll then unlock the controls. We're going to show a pop-up saying, hello, it's ready, time to start train spotting, or wait, we stopped. Then we're going to switch it to the free camera so the player can immediately move around, and then what we're going to do is tell the game in 300 seconds the scenario will end. So that says go away for 300 seconds and click end. So what happens then is, because this trigger divert event does exactly the same thing again as it did previously, so we need another function. On event end. And what does end do? End does something very simple. So end says, show a message saying it's time to finish, we're all done. And then we're going to do trigger deferred event complete, which is it's a tidiness thing. To do a trigger deferred event rather than trigger scenario completion immediately, but it does it in 0 seconds. So basically it returns control to the game and then comes back again. Yeah. So what we need to do now is function on event complete. Yeah, it's called complete again because that's what it is there. So end is end. These actually do match up. If that was complete ABC, then that would say complete ABC there. That would work. Yeah. If you don't have that, they have to match. Right, so on event complete is what ends the scenario. That says trigger scenario complete and then pops up the box that says finished. That is it, okay? Now I know there's an awful lot there, but once you've done that, or even if you cut and paste it in essentially, it's the same process for every Railfan scenario you do. Let me just run through it one more time. These are constants, and you'll need these pretty much for everything you do, so you can see them being used down here. Message left, message top, message small, true. All of that stuff is just because it's easier. You could read message. You could say 2 + 1 whatever, but it's not readable at all. On event and test condition, they're just passing on and creating this environment here where I can do on event stuff. Otherwise you need lots of stuff in one function and it gets messy. On event start, locks the controls, fires off the cinematic camera and says, wait for the cinematic camera to finish. When the cinematic camera has finished, we do this, which is pop up a message box, unlock the camera, and then tell it when the scenario is going to end. When the scenario ends, we pop up another message saying we're finished, and then we link through to another event which actually tells the game it's finished. That is how you end the scenario, and that's one of the things that most people don't get. Right, so I'm going to save that and just switch it back so that it's streaming the game, not my monitor. Right, I will put that on the blog when the stream's fill, or this evening. So I pressed reload on the game, it's loaded it, there's no errors come up under here. Just double check, all looks good, click compile, and that's it. So that's just Lua script side of it done. The one bit we didn't do yet was the cinematic camera. So let's just throw a camera in that does something. To do a cinematic camera, I covered that in a previous thing, but let's just look at it one more time briefly. You click on the tool panel over here, the MISC one, cinematic camera. Let's put the camera down there so I can get to it. Click it. Sorry, double click it and move my chat out of the way again. So if I double click on that cinematic camera, which is buried a little bit, then it gives me this dialogue. I'm going to put the camera where I want it to start, which is up here, and then I'm going to click that button. So it's disappeared, it's now there. Yeah, it's looking wherever I'm looking. I'm I'm now going to fly to the next place I want to do, which is there. Add a keyframe and make it look. There's another one appeared, and you notice there's a line that joins them. So that's the next frame. And then I'm going to go down to here. Add a keyframe, make it look at it. Come down here. Add a keyframe, make it look. And then stop about there. Add a keyframe, make it look. Right, so what does that now look like? It looks like, if I go back to there, what I've forgotten to do is do any timings. So let's put 5 seconds on each of these keyframes, which says it'll take 5 seconds to move around. Do I ever put in the script copyright block? I'm not sure what you mean. I never put a copyright block on any of my scripts. I'm not that precious about anything I do. Right, so now we press play. We've now got a cinematic camera, and you can see it's going to follow the... oh, that's nice, straight through a lamppost, excellent. And it's going to follow the path to each of these here. And it's very simple. It will just move the camera, animate it so that it ends up, so that you'll end up with it moving in all directions till it gets there. So the total time for that is 25 seconds. Mal, I guess you're behind me a bit. What language is it? It's Lua script. Finish. Right, so we've got the cinematic camera in. We need to name it to start camera. The reason it's called start camera, let me bring the Lua script back up again so that you can see the linkage. The reason it's called that is because here we said activate camera, start camera. So now we might be in a reasonable state here actually, so let me save that and let's see what we've got. Cinematic cameras fired off. X-Shooter, it is Lua, but it's not the latest version of Lua. It's definitely Lua. It's got a Lua interpreter built into it. There you go. Wait, we stopped. No, it didn't finish the cinematic because I only gave it 17 seconds on the cinematic, but that's fine. But now we're free to move the camera around wherever we want. Now, I don't know at the moment if you can set the camera somewhere. So it'll always jump back to that start place. Now, in theory, when this gets to 5 minutes, the scenario will end, and it'll end tidally. See you later, Copper Mal. So we'll just wait for that other train to come round here. On my route, why can't I select track I have placed? Oh, I've got no idea, Simon. Here come the other two trains. That's correct, BNSF. It will take 17 seconds regardless. Why does the game keep crashing if you use a while loop? It shouldn't crash if you use a while loop. Depends possibly what you're doing in the while loop, or how many iterations, or if you're stack overflowing. Right, so we wait for these to go through. Not a lot to look at, unfortunately, for the next 3 minutes. Yes, well, when you set your cinematic cameras up, external HDD, I would hope you would spend a bit more time on it. Is Railfan mode basically train spotting? Exactly, Deltic Lover. It's exactly it. There, it's finishing now. Jim Bob, yes, I did see that. Wow, that was an amazing video. There's a lot of smoke coming out the top of that train. Hey there, Apple. If you want to do a Railfan mode on Sherman Hill or Cologne-Koblenz, you can do it. And the invisible locos are in all 3 packs, I think. So I'm using Exeter Kingswear. You can tick Sherman Hill, you'll get that one, and if you tick Cologne-Koblenz, you'll get the Railfan loco for that one. But it doesn't matter which one you use. It makes sense to use the one that's relevant to the pack, though. Right, so there's not a lot to look at here for the next couple of minutes, so we'll just sit here, put the camera back, and we'll wait, just to prove that after 5 minutes the scenario will end. Is there an ice cream shop in Nebworth? No, there isn't. No, there isn't. Minute and a half to go. Yeah, official Lapis minecart. I've never heard of needing to put a weight in a while loop. That might be a Roblox thing. It's certainly not a train sim thing. There is no equivalent of weight. You just have to make your scenario. Weight is used to return control to the game so that you don't block it up. Where there's essentially you just have to make sure you don't block it up in train sim. The results of your London Brighton speedrun, you with me in the Scotsman 95, you in the Bullied Light Pacific 91, and the Rebuild Light Pacific 88. Yes! (4:11). Hopefully in the next minute or so we should get the scenario should just end. See you later, Victor. Not a lot to look at the minute, but from here on in, really everything is in place that you can just go ahead and add more trains in the way you would normally add trains in for making a scenario. C. Rogers, is Lua a steep learning curve or is it like HTML? It's harder than HTML because it's programmatic, it's structural. But it's not hardcore programming. It's one of the simplest programming languages you could learn. So it's very similar to BASIC. Right, hopefully we will get an end scenario any minute now. There you go, time to go. And when I click that, it'll say scenario complete, finished, and that's it. Scenario ended. And that's how you properly bracket your scenario, so you can have a nice intro at the beginning and you put your ending at the other end. BNSF, how do devs figure out what to put in a script that hasn't been done, like the first Railfan mode scenario? That's just being a programmer, BNSF. If you're when you learn to program, you start being creative. MTA Rails, is it XAML? No, it's not XAML. No. Lua is like BASIC. It's a programming language. XAML is a markup language, hence the ML. The two are fundamentally different. But it's very simple. Lua is really, really simple. It's very unstructured for a programming language. It's a dynamic DSL, dynamic scripting language, and that makes it very easy to do some really, really quick, hacky things. You can do structure. It's got a thing called object orientation in the later versions. So Think are supported in the game, so you can do all sorts of things. Right, okay, so I think that's basically it for the Nebworth train spotting, or for the how you make your own Railfan scenario. What would be really useful is if you could get me some feedback on what else you'd like to see in that. Did I explain that enough? I'll put something that backs it up onto the blog later on, so that you can see the code for yourself. And then like I said, if you can take that code and you don't have to rewrite it for every Railfan. Once you've got it done, I mean, I literally copied and pasted that out from another Railfan scenario I did this morning just to prove the point. And yeah, it says Lua is simple enough that even he can make a bodge job of it. And take it from me, he does make a bodge. Explaining in English would help. There's no way I can explain coding in English, Baked Bean Kid. It's got to be explained in coding. Sometimes how to make the camera pan to a control. Yeah, okay. Can you add that into the suggestion list, BNSF? And I will. I'll do that because that's just one command on the Lua script. I just can't remember what it is off the top of my head. Lowlands Gamer, the last time you did programming it was basic and you had to type the line numbers. So basically with Lua you don't have to type the line numbers, but it's very similar to basic. Yeah, it's really it's if you haven't done programming before, Lua is a really good first thing to start with because you can achieve stuff. Yeah, I had to spend a bit of time with Ed and after I'd finished laughing. Ed does fabulous stuff though. Right, okay, I'm going to restart the game now so that we can see if we can get some sound, and we'll see what we can do. Alright, I'll be back in a moment, folks.